I'm absolutely flummoxed by the information that I discovered today at work. So, just to set the scene a little bit, there are the org chart at the organization that I work for, at least within my team. There's this like foundational, like entry level position that most people start at when they start with the team, and we'll just call them the A's. Like that's the A group, and then you kind of the A's kind of when you get promoted, it like divides into like B1 and B2. So these the A's and the B1s and the B2s are all still like foot soldiers, peons, like no one is reporting to them. They are not supervisors or anything like that. There are supervisors that manage there's one supervisor that manages the B1s and the B2s, and then two supervisors that split up the A's, and then, managers, directors, whatever from there on out. And so I somehow managed to, when I got a return offer last summer after my internship, somehow managed to get brought back as a B1. And the difference between B1 and B2 is kind of just arbitrary. It's just labels to differentiate the fact that the B1s and the B2s are different from the A's. So I bypassed the A like entry level stage. So the B1s and the B2s, like I said, still foot soldiers, but are getting paid a little bit more, have, a little bit more like creative liberty with the work that they're doing, or I guess that we're doing. The A's, it's like very fundamental, foundational, just kind of like it's more complex than just like data entry stuff, but it's like you're taking data that is being sent in like fairly formulaic manners. It's fairly consistent with like how you're receiving this data, and you are just like inputting it into the database. Um, Pretty much the same every time with like a few differences, but there's only so much to learn. Uh, Before it's like you know everything, you know every possible situation that you could come across really with the work that the A's are doing. But this is very foundational stuff that the entire team runs on, and supports the entire company. So this is like data that we definitely need and work that definitely needs to be done, but is like still fairly simple. And so that I just kind of wanted to set the stage to show that the work that the A's are doing is not like should not be discredited in any mean. But the B1s and the B2s, let me tell you. So, like I said, this is the group that I fall into. And you would think that, a lot of these people start out in the A group and got promoted or were brought on as, a B1 or a B2 because of their substantial skill set or a degree from a good school or started out as an intern. There's another guy that got hired on straight into the B group as an intern a few years back. So I was not the first to do this. There was kind of a precedent set before me. um, but the work that is being done in the B group is non-existent. We have a bi-weekly stand up with all of the people in the B group. So all the B1s, all the B2s. And it's just that. I mean, it's just everyone stands up and we gather in this conference room and everyone just kind of updates on what they've been working on recently, ask for any like help that they may need, or, just like brief suggestions. It's typically between like 30 minutes and an hour. It's, I don't know, like 15, 20 people, I would say, depending on, who's in the office that day. And so today's Tuesday. The bi-weeklies happen every other Tuesday. And so last, or I guess 2 Tuesdays ago at this point, the stand-up didn't happen because there was some sort of conference going on and a bunch of people were out of the office anyways. And the people that weren't at the conference a lot of them were working remote. So it just kind of didn't work out and it ended up getting canceled. So we met today, but the last time that we've met was 4 weeks ago at this point. So you would think that people would come in with, a lot of like updates or comments or, at least just like status updates on things like, hey, yeah, since the last time we met, I've done XYZ and I've helped out on this and I've been added to this project. And here's my like future outlook on these projects and these things that I'm working on. But I just started recently, so I'm still kind of like trying to just figure out where I fit in with the team. Since I came on in the B group, I don't really have enough experience working with like the A group stuff to kind of just like, I guess, like backfill and like help out with them and like the work that they're doing. So I'm kind of just like relegated to whatever work that I'm being assigned. But since I'm new, it's like people, I don't know if it's just like people don't trust me or this is just how it is when you're new or what, but I have kind of just become like lost in the shuffle. So I'm coming into this bi-weekly like low-key scared because I'm just like everyone's gonna have all this stuff that they've been working on and I haven't been doing shit, and like they're gonna be able to like smell it from a mile away no matter what I say. So I'm just like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to go in, just be confident, because I have had some stuff to work on, but not like 40 hours a week for over the last 4 weeks of stuff to work on. So I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to say it with confidence and, just like fake it till you make it. And worst comes to worst, people will understand that I'm new and whatever, it is what it is. And so the meeting starts, and the guy, so it's literally just like go around the room and say what you've been working on recently. And so the guy to my left is a fellow B1, I guess I'll assign myself. And he's actually the one that I guess was assigned the task of organizing this meeting because for some reason, even though he's not like a supervisor or anything, he's the one that ended up sending out the invite and is like the one that coordinates everything. So he's to my left. He's the one that goes first. So I'm like, all right, cool. I strategically placed myself in the room so I'd be next to him and I would go, towards the front of the group and just like get it over with. And so he goes and he's got, some stuff going on, but he's kind of like a more soft spoken dude. So I'm just thinking like, all right, maybe he's just kind of brushing over some things and not really like going into uh great detail about what he's been up to recently. And so I'm up and I'm just like, all right, just short and sweet, be super vague with everything. And I say my piece, I say what I've been working on. And there are some other people in the room that I have like kind of touched base with a few times and worked on some like side projects here and there, but nothing like super major. So I'm thinking like, okay, these things that I've been working on are pretty minute, so I'm not going to bother bringing them up in the meeting because they're going to know, like they're going to know that if I'm so desperate for like checklists, like items to list off at this biweekly stand up, that I'm putting these like 10-minute, 15-minute little like one-off things that I was working on with them in my like, here's what I've been doing over the last 4 weeks. They're going to be like, wow, this kid is doing absolutely nothing. Right. So I say my piece and, keep it short and sweet. Everyone's nodding, whatever, kind of disengaged. So I'm like, all right, keep it pushing. So I go and the guy to my right goes. And this is like, I can tell this guy is like very motivated, very driven, pretty young dude as well, maybe a few years older than me. And he like says a few things that he's doing, and he seems to be doing a decent amount. He's helping out with some of like the A group work because he started as an A and then got pretty quickly promoted to, I guess, the B2 group. But then at the end, he's just like, but if anyone has, I'm just kind of keeping busy. So like if anyone has anything that they need help with, feel free to reach out. I'm just like, okay, like that's respectable. He's kind of like admitting that, maybe he's not as busy. So like, it is what it is. And then the next guy goes, and this is one of the guys that I was like, all right, I worked on something with them and it was like 15 minutes, 30 minutes tops, like not a big deal at all. Just like a simple request from someone internal to the organization that needed something from us. And I just asked him like, hey, can you show me the ropes here? Like, what would you do for a request like this? Did not take long at all. And that was like one of the, he only said two things that he was like, had been working on. And that was one of them. That was like one of his like big like heavy hitters, I guess. And I was like, what? Like that is seriously? And I kind of wrote it off as like, we worked on this within the last few days, so maybe it was just like top of mind for him. And this was just something that we had worked on recently, so it was like that's just like I said, what came to mind, so he just fired off. And I was kind of able to like excuse it when he said that. And then, one or two more people go though, and it's like, okay, I haven't really been working with these people much, so I don't really know exactly, maybe the stuff that they're doing is taking longer than it sounds, but just from like an outsider's perspective and like having a general idea of how things work with this team and how workflows go and how, certain how long certain projects should take, I'm kind of thinking like this doesn't feel like 40-hour a week work. Like this doesn't seem like people are doing much at all. And then this is where the real, and I know that I'm like 10 or 12 minutes or so into recording this, but this is where the real antagonist or protagonist of the story, depending on how you look at it, comes in. And this guy, so last summer I was working on this project with these two other interns from a different department, and they were both really nice, but my goodness, they were doing JS, and I was just like trying to be nice and trying to like keep humming along with the stuff that they were asking me to do, because it was keeping me busy too, because as an intern you're just kind of sitting around like twiddling your thumbs sometimes. So it was nice that I had stuff to do, but they were also like the requests that they were asking for were just like, are you serious? Like you're asking me to do this? Like you could definitely do this yourself. But I digress. So I come back at the beginning of this summer full time, and I find out from this guy who is, about to talk in the stand up, he's a B2, that the project that these two other interns had been working on from this other team with me has now been escalated to the VPs really liked it and really liked the idea, and we were kind of working on it in just like a small sample, and they want to expand it to our entire organization. And so now this project has been like blown up, and I was just like, at first I was just like, oh cool, like that's great, whatever. But then I realized I stopped interning here last August, and it is now June of like August of 2025, and it is now June of 2026. And I just got invited to like a meeting series where they're having weekly meetings about this project. And I hopped on the first meeting, and they had like basically done hardly anything since I left in August. And I talked to the guy that's on my team, and he was just like, yeah, they like brought this back up in January, like 6 months prior. And we're just like, yeah, we want to reboot this and we want to expand this to our entire team. And just nothing had been done from January until June, basically. And I don't know if they were having meetings in that time or what, but nothing was getting done. And so I come back in, and, I kind of like explained what I had done the summer prior and helped out with a few things, and got the project in a spot where it's just like, okay, I feel like this is like pretty much done. This is the deliverable. And so now the meetings at this point, it's now July 28th or 27th, something like that. The meetings are 10 or 15 minutes of just like waffling and people talking about nothing, and no progress is really being made. And I don't really know why the meetings are still happening, because as far as I'm concerned, our team does not need to be involved anymore. It's like the other department that excuse me, initiated this project. It's just like dragging their feet with stuff, and they don't really know like what to do or what's going on. And so these meetings are literally 10 minutes out of our day, like every week, or once a week. And this guy, that's like the main thing that he's talking about. Like this project that him and I are on is just like something that he's been working on. And, he's just been like, that was like the one thing that he named. And then he was just like, yeah, and I'm just kind of working on like miscellaneous stuff here and there. And this guy has been at with my team for like 5 or 6 years. So it's not like he's in my spot where he just started, 2 months ago or whatever. And he just doesn't really have a lot to do because he's not super like ingrained in the culture, ingrained in the team. Like, you theoretically should have other stuff to do. And then I just like I don't understand. Like, no one is doing anything. I cannot believe it. No one is doing anything, and everyone is getting paid for it. And it is just mind blowing that this is the state of this like big, well established company that is very successful and has so many customers. And I cannot believe it. And the conclusion that I have come to, because the supervisor of the B1s and the B2s is in this meeting. And, something that I feel like is reiterated a lot through a lot of the like all hands meetings and these like biweekly stand-ups is like, you guys are doing great work and we're so like glad to have you guys. And a sentiment that I've heard a lot recently is like, oh, we don't get paid enough, and like our department is severely underpaid compared to other departments in the organization. And it's like, rightfully so. I mean, we are doing nothing. I cannot believe it. And I know that I've said that too many times at this point, so I'm just gonna move on. But the supervisor is in this meeting, and so I went on a walk today, and I was just thinking about this, and I feel like maybe the root cause of this kind of just like cycle of nothingness, of just like everyone thinks that stuff is going on and everyone thinks that other people are doing work and doing good work and things are getting done, but really nothing, there aren't that many deliverables really being achieved in actuality. But no one has any idea about that because the managers or like the people in supervision positions are managing so many people in these big bloated organizations that they, in their mind, there's a lot going on and there's like a million different tasks and people doing things and whatever. And so they're responsible, these managers are responsible for all of these different projects, responsible in air quotes, because it's just like they are responsible for the people that are on these projects, but they're not actually on these projects themselves. So it's like the managers are like, okay, there's a lot going on, wheels are spinning, whatever. But that's just it. Wheels are spinning and like it's just stuck in the mud. And I feel like all of the like B1s and B2s, like these foot soldiers, are just like not doing anything. And what is super ironic, and I should have brought this up earlier, is that the people in the A group have like KPIs that they're being measured on and like metrics and numbers that they have to hit on a regular basis. And they're audited like every quarter and everything. And the B1s and the B2s, I just don't think get that same treatment. It's just like I don't know where the disconnect is, if it's like the B1s and the B2s are seen as having more seniority or what the deal is there, but they're just kind of like left to do their own thing, and it doesn't seem like there's any like hard and fast metrics that we're being graded on. And maybe we are. Maybe I'm gonna have like an end of year review and I'm just gonna get my ass kicked because I like completely missed the boat and like missed the memo on, you're supposed to be doing XYZ and achieving these numbers and hitting these KPIs, and I'm just like, flying by the seat of my pants here. But it seems like that's what everyone is doing. So if everyone is doing it and people that have been here for years are doing it, then surely that is just the standard and that is just the expectation. And I just think that it is cruel that the people in group A are getting paid less and are less, I guess, respected or appreciated, because I mean compensation wise, and also just like in the culture of the team, like the people in group A are just like that's just the bottom of the totem pole. That is like what you come in as, and that's just the fact of the matter. It's not like anything personal. Yet they are the ones that are like scrutinized the most when they are doing the brunt of the work and the foundational work that makes it so that, the B1s and the B2s and I I guess just like everyone else on the team can just kind of do whatever. And I just think that it is such a crazy dynamic and yeah.